Hello and welcome back to Analog Comics. This video will be important piece of the puzzle that is my video series about European comics, Franco-Belgian comics particularly. My original idea was to create many shorter videos. Well, shorter has been already destroyed, but anyway, many videos that are focused on smaller issues so that together they create their own network. So if you watch one of those videos and you want to know more about the subject, then there's another video linked to that. And the idea is that the end result, whatever it eventually will be, is a collection of many videos that are, well, easier to digest in small pieces. So if everything goes well, all my videos with those blue thumbnail backgrounds, they will be pieces of one universe, like my European comics universe. The subject for this video is particular way of drawing comics, which is called clear line. And it's probably the most obvious in this whole European comics video series, because there's no way around the clear line term if you want to do video series about European comics. Clear line is also by far the best known style to come out of Europe and most influencing. It's every time any channel is talking about Tintin, they at least throw in the clear line somewhere there. But it's usually mentioned quite in a passing way. Just, mentioning, oh, this is Tintin, it's done in a clear line, and here you go, there's something else. So I think it's good to kind of stop there and just talk through and open the whole clear line concept. And just so you know, well, I'm not sure why I'm even saying this aloud here, but I've been actively trying to get away from Hergé and his creation Tintin within these European comics videos. And the reason for that is that I fear that if someone is starting to watch these videos now and they only want to see those European comics videos from my channel, it feels like I'm talking about Tintin all the time. There's nothing wrong with that. I love it. It's integral part of my life. But I'd also like to make it very clear that European comics is not Tintin. Tintin was very important part of it, almost the start of it. And it started many important things, but there is so much more in that subject. But there is still so much to unravel. And as I said, clear line is something that I just have to talk about. I have to get that out of the way. It's something that I may be able to then refer to in my later videos. That's how I have planned this. I want to make this video so that I can cheat in the next video, so that I don't have to talk about certain subject or concept very long. I just can refer to it. Well, there is this type of thing. If you want to know more about it, go check this video. And that's the idea. But okay, enough of ranting, and let's jump into the subject of clear line. The way I want to do this is that I'll just quickly go through the origin of clear line and what makes clear line a clear line, the style. And then I'll look at how it has kind of transformed during the years. I mean, how it's seen differently, and then just mention certain other creators, because clear line is not exclusive to Hergé. It has had a lot of following. So there's a lot of creators who's been using and still are using the same style. Clear line is a style of drawing comics, and it was created and pioneered by Hergé, the creator of Tintin. And as the name implies, the line is very clear. That is in the core of it. In fact, at the beginning, when Hergé started to make his Tintin comics, there was no colors at all. So it was all about the lines. And one important detail about this type of drawing is that there is no hatching. So basically what the artist do is he kind of outlines, let's say, a shirt, and then there is no real hatching or shadows within that shirt. It's just one kind of blank area. There can be details like a pocket, something like that, but it's very scarce. I think the clear line is easiest to spot when it's in black and white, because many modern readers of modern comics, they are so used to hatching or shadows or shading. So when you see just the drawing without any of those effects, it's kind of almost surprising how empty they are of details. And it is not to say that there aren't any details, but it's really well thought out what is important, and everything else is left out. The picture is so simplified that it's super easy to read. That was one of the Erse's ideas, to make it very easily digestible and understandable, because he was mainly, at the beginning, all the comics were basically drawn for children anyway. So any comics done in clear line and in black and white, it's kind of easy to spot. But there aren't that many of them around anymore. Not even Tintin's, although Tintin started as a black and white before the World War II. But after the World War II, there was a pressure to get more colored comics out there, because there were more and more competition coming in. And for example, from USA. So black and white wasn't okay anymore for the readers, for the kids. They wanted the colors because they're already seeing other comics there with the colors. But Erse wasn't that happy about colors. He wasn't into the colors actually. He was so adamant that the high quality of his line work, it formed kind of the core of his art. But back then, just after the World War II, there was a massive shortage of paper. So Casterman, the publisher of Tintin albums, they suggested Erse that they cut the length of the albums half, because the black and white versions that were done before, they were 100 to 130 pages. So they suggested that it's going to be only 64 pages, but they'll add the colors, therefore making it easier to print because it requires less paper, and also takes the margins up at the same time. But adding color was one important factor. And when talking about colors coming into the clear line style, we have to talk about Edgar B. Jacobs, and he's not mentioned enough in this regard. Erse met Edgar B. Jacobs when he was working on a theater play based on a Tintin story. They became friends, and through Jacobs' passion about detail and colors, Erse also kind of opened up to the idea, and he saw how Jacobs handled the colors, and he thought that this could actually fit his style also. It could fit how the Tintin was to be made. Now, Edgar B. Jacobs, he's a creator of Blake and Mortimer, and that is a classic European comic series. But it is a different subject, so I have to leave it for another video. But I do feel that he has to be mentioned here, because Jacobs was possessed with details, and he was kind of testing different color palettes. He was really trying to find how to make those only few colors kind of available for print at the time, how to make the best out of it. He was like a mad scientist. Even Erse said that his obsession to detail, it wasn't even obsession, it was on a religious level. He said that there was nothing, and no one could come even close to how obsessed with details Jacob was. Apparently that was a good thing for Erse too. So now Erse had found a kind of coloring that he could accept to his Tintin comics. And if you look at the Tintin comics, the colors are quite flat and pastel. They're not really bright. And if there is any bright colors, like really deep reds, it's like they're shining through there. But otherwise, if you look at the pages in general, they are quite subdued colors in a way. They are also done so that they kind of almost amplify the effects of the lines. That is how Erse wanted to do it. And he was very much against shading. He said it has to be flat color. So it means that when he has outlined, let's say, a shirt or a leaf or trousers, everything inside those lines has to be in one color, just the one blank color. That's how he wanted to do that, as he felt that that won't hinder or spoil his line work. So as an example, let's just look at this one cover of one Tintin cover. This is Tintin and the Picaros, and this is the last Tintin Hergé made. There was one Tintin published after this one too, the Alf art, but it wasn't, I don't even regard that as an album. This is the last Tintin Hergé made. And although I think this is one of the most complex graphically and in details, in colors, still you can see in this cover how these areas, like the Tintin shirt, Captain Haddock's shirt, the trousers, it's just one black area there. And all the leaves, all the details, they are in one color. Whatever is, it's like that old computer program when you paint it, you just clicked one area and it clicked everything in the same color. It's a bit like that. And one other important detail in the clear line is that everything is in focus. Although it's a 3D picture, we can see that there's at the background there is this temple, and in the front we got the characters running, but still this temple, it's as focused as anything here. The same is with every single leaves. There's no shading or smudge anywhere to show the speed of these characters or the distance of the objects. Everything is in focus. It doesn't matter where you move your eyes. Any object you are looking at it, it's clearly in focus. And also one thing that is usually common to the clear line style comics, at least from the same era as when Tintin was made, is that the characters, they are usually a bit cartoonish. You know, just look at the Tintin's head. It's like a balloon with some hair sticking out. But everything else, the world, is almost super realistic. Like if you look at any houses or cars or planes in Tintin, they are all very lifelike. Like the plane in the Tintin and the Flight 714, that was modeled from a real plane model. But the characters, of course, are not. Well, like the characters in that particular comics, like the Rastapopoulos, I think that's the way it's pronounced. If you look at him, he's like really long and funny nose. It's almost like Asterix type nose. But everything else is very realistic. And also one good way to describe the clear line style to someone who's not even into comics would be those glass paintings, or I don't know what they're called. It's like mosaics. You know, old windows of churches, if you think of them, they are made of these pieces of glass. Each piece is different color, but it's like a puzzle. Together they create a picture of some kind of scene there, but each color is surrounded by thick black line. That's where those glasses are kind of glued together, but that's like the clear line there. And within those lines, you see just one flat color. That's one way to easily describe clear line to someone not into comics at all. And one more key feature of the clear line is that there isn't that much movement in the picture. It's almost like a photograph. Everything has stopped. There isn't that much dynamic movement there. Hergé style, the clear line, has also been called the Hergé school or Brussels school. You can see those names, but they basically all mean the same style. And back then, at those times, after the World War II, this clear line style that Hergé pioneered, it was often seen as an opponent to marginal school. And one example of marginal school, a good example, is Spirou. If you look at this cover, it already shows it's more chaotic. There's more movement in it. And the characters, well, they're also like cartoonish, but you can see how the legs are bent. And even if you look at I think the first page alone shows you the kind of, I guess you could call it mess. It is, but that's the point. This is more dynamic style. Whereas when we move to Erosé, everything is very clean. And back then, these two styles, the Marcinelle school and the Clear Line, they were seen as almost like enemies. And the reason for that was that the Tintin and the Clear Line style was very prominent in the Tintin magazine. And Hergé was the kind of creative director. He was like the art director also in this magazine. His stories were published periodically in that Tintin magazine, but there was also other creators, which I will talk about in a minute. But he was pushing them hard to go nearer and nearer his Clearline style, to make everything clean, to clean away everything that is not absolutely necessary from the picture. So it became kind of a household style of the Tintin magazines. Whereas in Spirou magazine, it was this wild, more roundish, more dynamic style with movement in the gags. So that Marcinelle school became the household style of the Spirou magazine. I may do another video of that later. But this is why they were kind of thought as opponents. But now that time has moved forward, they just two different type of drawings. No one remembers anymore or cares about the battle between these two magazines. And it was important battle back then because Spirou and Tintin, they were basically the only two comic magazines in Belgium. There were many others too, but they kind of all lost the battle, and these two became the giants on the big two in the Belgium. And that's why it was important back then. The Clear Line term was actually coined after all the Tintin albums were published. So it was after the Tintin and the Picaros were published. It was coined by Jos Zwart. He coined the term Clear Line. And I read somewhere that Hergé didn't actually like that term. He somehow saw that was putting too much focus on just a technical line, whereas he was thinking it more as a way of telling a story. But then again, Hergé's comments changed within time anyway, as I read somewhere that after all these years when he was pushing everybody within the Tintin magazine to come in line with his style, to have a bit similar, he was also at the same time, he was kind of worried that everything will start look the same and therefore become boring. And actually I will show you at least one comic that is so close to Hergé's style that I thought, when I was a child, I thought it was the same person making the comics. Yeah, there was the name on the covers, but I was so small that I didn't think more of it. I just looked at the pictures and thought that this has to be the same person making this, because the art is so similar. Okay, but let's talk about the Clear Line a bit more broadly. Let's get out of the Hergé thing and more to other creators using the same style. Although we still have to kind of stay close to the Tintin, because there are four names that are always mentioned when talking about Clear Line. I mean, mentioned on top of Hergé's name. It's Edgar B. Jacobs, Roger Leloup, Jacques Martin, and Bob de Moor. And the reason for that is that all those four creators, comic creators, they also worked for Hergé. They were at the Hergé studio. That studio was responsible of, well, first it was responsible of updating all those first Tintins that were made in black and white, and they were over 100 pages long. So these creators came in to help Hergé to kind of squeeze them into the 64-page format and color them. And basically they had to redraw all the comics, and then they also made changes to them, added details, and kind of updated everything. So these four names are always mentioned, And of course, they had to learn the Clearline style because they were working for, well, the godfather of Clearline. And another reason why these four names are mentioned is because they also became famous comic creators. They published their own original comic series that became popular. That can't be said of all the people who work for Erse in his studio. But let's take a quick look what these four creators did by themselves. What was their original own content? Let's start with Edgar B. Jacobs. Edgar B. Jacobs is the creator of Blake and Mortimer. And I don't have any Blake and Mortimer comics at the moment. I've had kind of love and hate relationship with that comic. I absolutely adore the graphics. They are mind-blowing. And they are so close to my heart because I kind of grew up with that kind of comic style. I owned the comics, then I sold them, then I owned them, then I sold them. I feel like I might be old enough now to maybe get back into them, and I actually thought that now because Blake and Mortimer is now continued by other creators. And I know that Sean Van Hamme, one of my favorite writers for comics, he has made a couple Blake and Mortimer stories. I don't remember who was the artist there, but anyway, I'm kind of after Sean Van Hamme's stories, so I thought that maybe that would be my soft step back to the world of Blake and Mortimer. Just in case you don't know, Blake and Mortimer, absolutely gorgeous graphics. It's clearly a Clearline, although some people have said it's not because there's shadows there. One thing about Clearline is usually when you have shadows, even the shadows aren't black. There's no like Frank Miller black. Even the shadows are kind of in light. You can see everything is in focus. So some people have used that as an excuse to say that Blake and Mortimer is not Clearline, but I don't agree. Just knowing how much Edgar B. Jacobs was involved in creating the whole Clearline, I have to include him. But his own comics, they are super wordy. I don't hate the wordiness. It's hard for me to accept that this beautiful picture is there and then there is massive text box telling me exactly what it is in the picture that I already see. Yeah. I'll try to jump in again. Let's see how it goes. Then we got Jacques Martin with his Alex series. And just by looking at the cover, you can see that this is Clearline. Everything in focus. You have kind of clear areas, flat colors, only one colors, there's no real shading. Like everything that would be just in the way has been removed. And this is also a very wordy album. I'll show you some pages here. It's like the pages are coming off actually. I've owned these a long time. This is a very wordy series, but Jacques Martin is wordy in a different way than Edgar B. Jacobs. He adds more in the text. He's not just repeating what's happening in the text, but it's kind of funny because he is describing the feeling. Someone is falling. You just have like a photo. It's almost like a photograph of someone falling. You know, Clearline is always like stopped. But then in the caption box, it says, as he was falling, he was thinking of his loved ones back at home and how they were going to miss him. You know, something like that. And it's kind of in an endearing way. I like it. And as a child, I fell in love with the series because of the era, the Roman era it talks about. It's also quite different that this is a series where the Romans are not the bad guys, like in Asterix. But just to give you more pictures and not just me talking, I'll show you other covers of the albums I have here. You can see the style. This one's in plastic. Spartacus Sun. Is this a English version? No, it's actually a Swedish version. Not sure why it's in plastic. But you can see the graphical style. Oops, and then we actually arrived to the next name I was supposed to talk about. So that was Alex. But now we are at Bob Demore and Mr. Barelli. Now Bob Demore was also working in the RZ studios, helping him out on finishing the Tintin albums. And he is the most copycat, I think, when I look at it, his style, when compared to RZ. If we look just at the covers of these albums, hope you can see them. There we go. But yeah, when I was younger, I thought that this was like brother of Tintin. That this character is like, why wouldn't it be called the brother of Tintin? The little things like movement. If you look at Tintin, at their feet there is this curly line showing the movement of characters. He has all those little things that make Tintin. I find them in Barelli. To me, this is just another character, but exactly in Tintin style. It's kind of interesting. But I think that Barelli hasn't been translated too much. I don't know if this is available in English. If you have this available in your language, whatever it is, let me know. And then we arrived to the last name of those four, Roger Leloup. He was also helping RZ in his studio with the Tintins. Roger Leloup is fascinated of all kind of machines, like flying machines, airplanes, well, whatever, space, ships, everything like that. He is fascinated about them. And it shows in his own original work, Yoko Tsuno. I really like Yoko Tsuno, especially her adventures that happen in space. She usually has adventures on Earth. Some of them are more science-based, I guess, but then there are also more fantastical. But then there's a clear line. The other type of stories that are based on this world of Vinea. And these are my favorite. I've been reading these since childhood, but they didn't publish these in Finnish fast enough. So when I came by these English versions, I had to buy them. This is something like Comcat Publishing, Comcat Comics. I don't know what this is, but today, if you are interested in Yoko Tsuno, you can find a lot of them at Cinebook. They have a really nice collection of Yoko Tsuno available. And here is my pile of Yoko Tsuno comics. There's quite a lot of them. I think I have everything, at least everything available in Finnish. Then I have some Swedish, some English. But at the moment they are now publishing these in Finnish quite well. I could upgrade, but I don't usually do that. I just keep whatever I have. But yes, so in those Vinea space stories, you can really see how Roger Leloup, he loves to draw these spaceships. He always chooses kind of angles and kind of panels where it's justified for him to draw something technical in them. And just to put this in a historical context, Yoko Tsuno was one of those rare and early female characters that were kind of leading characters in the comic series. So this was opening doors to many others that have come after. But Clearline wasn't, or at least isn't anymore, only a Franco-Belgian thing. It was born in Belgium at the hands of RZ, but of course with the success of it, it spread around the world. And to end this video, I will just kind of throw in some international artists, creators, just to show you that maybe you are even surprised to see that I'm listing them here. But honestly, the list of artists that have been kind of counted in to done anything in Clearline, it's pretty massive. Oh, and before we go to those artists, I have to mention that the Clearline, although it's always mentioned, it's talked about, it's very known concept from Europe. It's also very old. It was created before the World War II. With the Tintin, it became super popular. And throughout 50s, the success only grew and grew bigger. And Erse was also, he also made advertising. He drew advertising for companies. There was no Photoshop you could use to create nice environments and then print them nicely on high-end picture on the paper. Everything was a bit low quality, so the ads were done by hand. And Erse has his hands in that business too. He was actually very anxious. He really liked to do the advertising. For a long time, he thought that that was his main job, and the comics were just kind of on the side. But then the success of Tintin just blew to so big proportions that he couldn't ignore that. But it meant that also this clear line, it kind of burst out from the comics into the everyday life of everybody, because you could see in the ads. And for a while, for at least for a decade, it was like the style to do things. There was also a point when people felt that it was overused, and then the trend became against it, and the clear line was kind of, for a while, it was left untouched. But then later, there were more and more artists who kind of found it again, or updated, maybe changed it a bit to fit their own style. But anyway, they wanted to make sure that everybody understood that this is clear line. So it means that now that time has moved forward, what was then hip and new and revolutionary, and for a while the trend for everything, even advertising, then it became kind of no because there was too much of it. But then they became like revival. Jacques Tardy was one of them. Like Jacques Tardy made his Adèle Blanc-Sec series clearly in the style of a clear line. I haven't actually even read this. I only bought this a few days ago. I got it with €3, good deal. But anyway, so there were comics creators who kind of came back to it, and time went on and on. You know, there's more decades, and now we are in 2023. So even today, someone can use the clear line and is using, but the way it's seen, we don't anymore see it as something new and revolutionary, but it can be used to kind of convey nostalgia, for example. Like this Adele book, I think it's very nostalgic in a way. But I've seen it also used in an ironic way. So that it means that it's very old-fashioned, and whoever is using that style, he knows that the reader knows. So it immediately gives the reader a certain type of feeling. They are already in the right mood. So you can use it in ironic way, which was not the case when the clear line was kind of invented or pioneered. It's interesting how that as time passes, the same thing, although it's the same thing, same style, the way we perceive it changes when it's put out now as a new product, as a new comic. And to truly finish the video, I'll show you a few of the artists that I happen to have in my shelves that are seen as artists using the clear line style. One of them is Jason, and he's from Norway. So this is to underline also the fact that clear line has become international phenomenon and still used today. So Jason is one of them. I think that it's Norway, so it has to be Jason, not Jason. Then we got Jeff Darrow, which is often also included in the clear line category. And I see why. For me, I can see that. I see the influence there. Although he has an updated way of using the colors and so on, but the way he has focus on everything, and those who have read like this hard-boiled know that that focus is like, it's inhuman. The way he focuses on those bolts and nuts, everything is in focus in his pages. But Jeff Darrow was introduced to European comics quite early on by Moebius. So that's how he found his influence. So we were already in Norway, USA, and now we're in Japan with Jiro Taniguchi. This is Walking Man by him, expanded edition. I don't know what has been expanded. I haven't even read this yet. This has been months on my shelf, but there's been, so much to read and to do. It's waiting. But I fiddled through this, and this is clear line all the way. It has everything done correctly in the clear line style. And it's also in black and white, which is kind of unusual. It's not, since the Tintins were colored, there aren't that many clear line black and white albums available, but now we can get them from Japan. Jiro Taniguchi was also, he found the Franco-Belgian comics already in the 70s. And that must have been a very rare thing in Japan. He took his influence, clearly his influence from there, and it has built him quite a reputation. But then last, and absolutely the best, I meant to say absolutely not the least, is Moebius and his work with the Garden of Edina. This is the Epic Collections version I have had, but this is also in a clear line style, and there's insane amount of details here too, but it has all correct things. And it was Moebius, he was intentionally trying to do this in RC style. He wanted to remove everything that was unnecessary. But Moebius being Moebius, he can draw in many styles, and that's what he has done. So just in case you're watching this and you're from USA, I'm pretty sure you heard of Moebius, but you may not have heard his real name, Jean Girard, which he used to draw like realistic looking comic, the Blueberry. But as you can see just by the cover, this is all against the clear line rules. You have all these hatching and different shadings. Everything is even kind of smudgy and unclear compared to the clear line. Super dark colors, and the line work isn't the main thing necessarily, although his line work is pretty insane. I'll show you some. Here the same thing. You got shading, and so I just wanted to leave him here because he has made comics in many styles, but clear line is one of them, and he is a massive name in any content when talking about comics. But this is what I have to say about the clear line, the style of drawing comics. It's important piece of European comics history, and yes, it's spread out like wildfire, and it's still affecting many comics creators even today. And I just wanted to point out those little things that may help you to point out these influences. But because we are talking about art, it doesn't mean that you and I have to agree if this is clear line or not. I just see the influences there, some others may not. That's important. I think in art, when you're looking at the picture, what you see in it is the truth, not what the others see. But I just wanted to, because I'm talking about and for the European comics, I just want to make people maybe a bit more sensitive to spot that, because it all benefits the European comics in general, and maybe people can start to see how, although European comics is not often talked enough, but it's there. The comic pros, the creators and artists, they know, they have the influence, and they are putting it there, even though we don't always notice that. And just in general, it's great to be back making videos. I know I'm a bit slow. I just do them whenever I get chance and not feeling pressured, but yes, there'll be more, and the next one will not have Herose in it or Tintin. I promise you that. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.